everyone, it's Nicole here for Lawnfawn with an avocado to my toast interactive slider card featuring Lawnfawn stamps and dies to create an interactive, fun, kind of love-themed type of card, but could be used for any time that you just want to send a little pick-me-up to a friend or a loved one. So much fun, and this interactive element of toast, or there's even a Pop-Tart option popping out of the toaster, is so cool, just really, really unique. We are going to use the small stitched rectangle die to die cut a rectangle here from smooth white cardstock. And what we need to do first is figure out our placement for our toaster and figure out where we're going to have that so we know where to place the interactive elements. I'm going to use a T-square ruler and a pencil to draw a little pencil line. So I'm making a little mark here and just drawing that line down my cardstock. I can erase that later. This is going to tell me where to put the notch so that you have a great little place to pull up your interactive element, and also along this line is where we're going to create the slider. The slider for this, what is so unique and special about it is that it's hidden back behind the toaster, so you never see that slider track, which I think makes this card really unique as far as a slider goes, because so often you see that track, and this doesn't take away from anything else going on the card because you never see it. So I have centered this piece. I'm using a couple pieces of Post-it tape to hold down the notch. I'm going to take my toaster and I'm going to draw a little line right above where that's going to go. And right below that, I'm going to use this straight track piece. In fact, through the two little holes there, you can kind of see your pencil line. And then you can tape that down, and I run it through all at once to save time. But you could do that separately if you wanted to as well. And then I want to get rid of my pencil lines because I want to customize this panel. You could die cut this from pattern paper or another solid cardstock, or you can do what I'm going to do here and build my background. It was really important to get those die cut pieces first and then go ahead and build my colorful background with abandoned coral and dried marigold inks. I want to blend those into a seamless blend that naturally lightens at the bottom of the panel. And then I want to take a stencil. I'm using a stencil from Simon Says Stamp. It has some hearts on it. You could use anything. You could even create your own stencil to add some hearts. You could even stamp hearts with first and second generation stamping to get some light hearts all over the background. I'm doing tone on tone. You could do this with stamps as well, with abandoned coral and dried marigold, so that I have a really subtle heart themed background there. And then I want to set that aside to completely dry, or you can hit it with a heat tool. To mat this panel on, I really felt like it needed a little something special just to kind of decorate the edges. So I am taking the Lawnfawn Fancy Scalloped Rectangle Stackables, and I inked up the edges of this panel with abandoned coral ink so that it matches perfectly. And we're going to be matting this center stitched rectangle panel on top of this. I'm using a piercing tool to get all of those little holes popped out. So there's what it's going to kind of look like. Our center panel will be popped up. Here is the track piece and also the little guide die cut from white cardstock. Because you're not really going to see these pieces, I die cut them from a nice sturdy weight white cardstock. You fold in the tabs on the front like you saw me do there, and then you thread them through from the back of your panel to the front. Now this is the slider mechanism. This is where the magic is. You can adhere your toast or Pop-Tart to this little panel thing here, or these little tabs. That's where the adhesive goes. I'm going to use some Scor Tape, and I'm going to put a couple of tabs or a couple of strips of Scor Tape rather on that. I'm also going to put a piece on the inside of the short tab and on the back of this track. This track piece is really unique and such a great idea. What it does is it holds the track in place so it doesn't wiggle around everywhere. I'm going to pull the pieces off the back and then wrap this around the track panel and adhere it right below the notch. This is something you're not going to see. It's just the security piece that keeps your track going straight up and down. And then I'm going to wrap that around and adhere that little tab, and there is our track piece. Really clever. Lawnfawn has thought of everything with this amazing interactive set. Let's go ahead and set that all aside and stamp our pieces that we need for the card. I am mostly using images from the Lawnfawn Let's Toast stamp set, and that includes the toaster, the toast, the avocado, the knife, the butter plate, and the little pad of butter. I know the pad of butter and I think the other piece of toast aren't shown here. I ended up stamping the toast twice to have a couple of pieces, but they were both stamped later and colored exactly the same as their corresponding pieces. I'm stamping everything with Lawnfawn Jet Black ink, coloring it in with Copic markers. We're going to add faces to our images to be consistent, but I also pulled images from past Lawnfawn stamp sets. So the salt and pepper shaker, I'm thinking if you're making avocado toast, I like a little salt and pepper with mine. I got those from Love and Breakfast, which is a much older Lawnfawn stamp set, which I love. I love being able to mix and match. There already are sweet faces on those salt and pepper shakers, so the faces I add to the other elements are really just going to tie in. And then the mug is from Pumpkin Spice. It's a little mini 2x3 stamp set. I love it. I thought the size and scale of this mug worked perfectly with the toaster. And again, coloring everything in colors that I think will work for Valentine's Day. If you're looking for a Valentine's Day card for someone, this would definitely work. Or if you just need a card for any time where you want to tell someone how much they mean to you. Will work for either way, but I definitely, with my color choices, I did the peachy reds, and then we'll do some nice neutrals for toast. I'm using a feathering technique on the toast to give it a little bit more of a natural toast look. Greens for the avocado, yellows for the butter, and then kind of an orange color for the butter plate, which will also tie in to our inked background. But I want to make sure I color everything in first before I go and add the faces. We're going to add faces with the images that coordinate from the Let's Toast stamp set. There are several sizes, teeny tiny sizes, about the size of the salt and pepper images, but it's an individual image, so you can customize the seed in the avocado, the little pad of butter, or even the stick of butter on the butter plate. The small face will work for those sized images. The large face obviously is going to be perfect for the toaster. And then the next size face works really great for the toast. In addition to the faces, and there's different faces because for my 2 pieces of toast, I used both different faces in that size. And also for the smallest, there's 2 different choices. I used both of those. I used a different one for the avocado than I used for the pad of butter. But there's cheek images that coordinate with the 2 largest sizes. There's also a cheek image that coordinates with the Pumpkin Spice stamp set. It comes with a face and cheeks, so I used that for the mug. Some grays for the top of the salt and pepper shaker and the knife. Now it's going to be easier, you guys, to stamp the faces before you die cut anything. So I'm going to put this back in my MISTI, and I'm going to stamp as many faces as I can with one press of the MISTI as possible. So we're going to grab the toast face, we're going to grab the toaster's face, the avocado, and it's sticking to my fingers just a little bit, and the mug. Then we'll pick them all up at once, ink them with lawnfawn black licorice ink. I like to switch my ink. The jet black is great for Copic coloring. The black licorice is really great for stamping a crisp black image. Not that the jet black doesn't. You could definitely use that. I just, for whatever reason, I really like how it looks stamped on top of the Copic colored images. And so that's what I'll do a lot. Now we're going to take the coordinating cheeks. For the red mug, I did end up using lobster ink. It's going to be subtle because it's red on red, but I wanted it to be pretty subtle. I'm also using the Misty to stamp this so that I can ink them up and stamp them in the exact same spot twice. It's really important to me to be able to do that. I don't want to ruin all of the coloring that I've done previously. So I go ahead and line it up and put it in the Misty. For the toaster, we're going to use Peachy Keen Ink. I wasn't sure. I kind of went back and forth on what I wanted to use there, and I ended up using the Peachy Keen ink, and for the toast we're using Ballet Slippers. So I switched up the ink on all three of these images just based on what color I used with Copic markers to color the image. Think, you know, whatever would show up the best, but still not be too overpowering. Now the great thing about this toaster, in the Let's Toast add-on, there is a slot to make this interactive. There is a different die in the actual Let's Toast coordinating die set, which makes it so you can tuck the toast inside and not be movable. This slot is specifically designed to make the toast or the Pop-Tart pop up out of the toaster. So I'm going to line that up. Again, I'm using the little holes in the end to see that with the coordinating stamped line on this image. And then I am cutting these apart using Post-it tape to hold them down and die cutting everything with one pass of the machine. I'm a big fan of saving little bits of time where I can. So if I can tape these in place so that I can be sure they don't shift and move while I'm die cutting, since we've already done all of our coloring, and I can get them die cut with one pass, that's what I'm going to do. I like to save time in little ways like this. I think those salt and pepper shakers are just darling, and they really do work with this little scene that I'm building here. So there's that little strip that die cut from the toaster. That's where the magic's going to happen. That's where the toast will pop up out of the toaster, or your Pop-Tart, depending on what kind of card you are going to make. And on these tabs now, I'm going to remove the backing paper, and I'm going to put my toast right there in place. And then you can simply slide this up and down. Now mine was not wanting to slide very well. I find that if you move the mechanism over and over and over again, it loosens up a little bit. Another thing that is going to help this a lot is popping up this whole rectangular panel on that scalloped panel with foam adhesive. For whatever reason, that little bit of dimension makes moving an interactive piece much, much easier. I'm putting some foam adhesive squares on the sides of the toaster now. And we're going to slide this over top. We want to make sure the toaster is completely in the down position before we put our toast in place. We only want it peeking out the very top, that little tippy top piece. And then when you slide it, it's going to pop up out of the toaster. How adorable is that, you guys? Really fun. And such clever little punny plays on words with the coordinating greetings from the Let's Toast stamp set. So you can make this work whether you're using toast, whether you're using avocado or the Pop-Tart. You can really customize it to say what you want it to say. Now I'm going to play around with my images, kind of see how I want to lay them all out before I commit to securing them to my card. And it's about this point that I remembered I really wanted an extra piece of toast. I felt like the toaster is such a prominent big image on my card. I need a little bit more going on the left side of the design. I need something else. I like what I have, but I wanted another piece of toast. So I ended up stamping another piece of toast plus the pad of butter, added faces to them, and then the toaster, of course, is popped up to make that interactive element work. We're going to have some images adhered directly to the background and some popped up. The toast and avocado are actually directly on the background. The salt and pepper, where the salt overlaps the toaster, it's adhered directly to the toaster with glue dots, but the pepper shaker has foam adhesive behind it. The same thing with the butter dish. Whatever overlaps the toaster has a glue dot, and then whatever's hanging off the side has foam adhesive. The knife is the same way. The little pad of butter, I'm actually going to just use a glue dot to secure that because it's on top of the toaster. And then the mug over on the left is going to be adhered with foam adhesive. And that just gives the appearance of depth and dimension. So I've trimmed off the excess from our pull tab now, and that is pretty much flush with the top of this panel, but I'm going to stick a little pull tab here. This is also part of the Let's Toast add-on, and I'll show you that in a minute. Before we secure this panel to anything with foam adhesive, we need to finish any stamping that we want to do. So in this case, I'm putting the first part of my greeting popping up to say, I've stamped it with the lawnfawn clear ink, embossed with lawnfawn white embossing powder, and then I am going to heat set that to really stand out. Now I let this sit and completely dry overnight. I actually started this one day and came back to it another day, so my background was dry. If you're doing it all in one go, I would suggest hitting your background with a heat tool first to make sure those distress inks are all the way dry before you stamp and emboss. I'm also taking the little heart from Let's Toast and stamping this with lobster ink all over the background. Now let's add foam adhesive beside and around the track here, that pull tab track, and this is what's going to make it move so much better. I'm going to take a little pull here stamp and stamp that on a tab. This tab was die cut from chili pepper cardstock so that it really stands out and the recipient can see it. I'm actually going to use it with the side that doesn't have the die cut arrow. I'm going to have that on the back so you won't see it. And I opted to use a sentiment or action word, I guess, so that the recipient knows to pull here so that the card does something. And then I'll secure that on my little slider track. So fold that in half. I added glue dots to the front and back of this. Then I'm just going to kind of pinch that in place there. And there's how the little toast works. Is that not just the cutest thing? I think this is so much fun. We're going to pull off the backing paper from our foam. Add this to our scallop, our fancy scalloped rectangle background. And you can see I did not add ink to the center of this because you're not going to see it. So you can save yourself a little work there as well. That dresses up the background really nicely. I see I maybe missed a couple of those center little holes, so I poked those out. We can secure this to a white side fold card base and then stamp the avocado to my toast inside. I stamped this with lobster red ink, so it has the sentiment on the front and it moves to the inside of the card to finish off. I really am loving the look of a completely finished card that has sentiments on the front and the inside. I've also added some white pin detail to some of the images to dress them up and finish up the card. Thank you guys so much for joining me today for this Let's Toast interactive slider card featuring lawnfawn stamps and dies. Please be sure to visit the lawnfawn blog for more information. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.